Have you ever read First John chapter 3 and felt a little bit unsettled? I mean, it says things like, whoever abides in him does not sin. And it says things like, he cannot sin because he has been born of God. Now, if we're being honest here, that can raise a question. Is John saying that I have to be perfect? And if I'm not, then does that mean that something is really wrong with me? So let's slow down here. Because in the same letter, in chapter 1, John says, if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves. So here, John is clearly not talking about and not teaching instant perfection here in chapter 3, because chapter 1 says the other way around. So what is John saying here? Let's look at this through God's design law principles. Sin is not just about breaking rules. It's what happens when a life is out of harmony with how God designed life and reality to function. You know, like a heart out of rhythm, or a system running corrupted code, or a virus is in a computer. It's dysfunction in a system of life. That's what sin is. So John is describing two different ways of living, two different directions in life, if you like. One is living disconnected with God, out of harmony with life, if you like. The other is living connected to him. So when he says, whoever abides in him does not sin, he's not talking about a single mistake at all. He's talking about a way of life. He's talking about a healthy tree. If it's planted in good soil, getting water and sunlight, it will produce good fruit. But that doesn't mean that every leaf is perfect. But the direction of the growth is healthy. So in the same way, when somebody is born of God, something inside that person begins to change. Their desires shift, their thinking starts to realign with God's life-giving design protocols, and sin then no longer feels natural. So when John says he cannot sin, he doesn't mean a person will never fail. What John meant was they can no longer live comfortably in sin as their normal way of life. Because when God's life is restored in us, love starts replacing selfishness, and truth starts to replace lies, deception, and trust begins to push away fear. And sin becomes out of place in a growing, healthy environment. So should we feel worried when reading this? No. But we should be honest that this passage isn't trying to make you afraid or anxious. It's helping you see what's really happening inside us when we accept Christ. The real question is not, have I ever sinned? The real question is, what direction is my life moving toward? So if a person is comfortable living in ongoing rebellion, that tells you something is disconnected. But if you find yourself struggling, falling, getting back up and turning back to God despite all the falls, that is evidence of the right direction, evidence of life. So John is not saying a true Christian never sins. John is saying a person who's connected with God's life-giving design cannot continue to live in sin as their normal way of life anymore, because God is restoring them back to alignment, back to harmony with his design. And that changes everything, my friends. Because now it is not about trying to be perfect. Now it's about trying to stay connected and steer in the direction of life. And when you stay connected to that source of life, change becomes the natural outcome. Amen to that.